This is All the Rage with Paige. I'm Paige, and today we are going to be talking about authenticity, baby. To me, authenticity is really kind of like an aura, an energy. It's what we're putting out, and it's what people can receive the most from each other. It's how we make friends, it's how we build trust. And to me, it's essentially if the person is genuinely doing what they want to be doing. They're making the choices that they genuinely want to be making. I think that being authentic does require like radical self-love, acceptance, confidence, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, being aware of your values, but also not being attached to them. Because I think a big part of being authentic is going with the flow of life, always growing and progressing, like always becoming a new version of yourself in a way. Because I feel like that's the natural thing. If you're being authentic, you are being open, you are being true to your natural instincts. And naturally, I think humans do change. I think when we hold on too much to everything, from the start, we're not really like allowing ourselves to explore or to grow and learn from mistakes and things like that. I think we get that confused a lot of times. I think family members is a perfect example because I think family members are like some of the best targets to keep us in the same place and keep ourselves from progressing or like realizing things about the world and stuff. Because I feel like with family members, we're not as easy on them as we are with our friends usually. I think we have an easier time putting them in a box because we've known them the longest. And I think naturally, those are the people that we probably like subconsciously compare ourselves to the most. And that's also like where our values are usually formed is with family. So I think if another family member changes their values or beliefs, that kind of raises some alarms for ourselves of, oh man, is this something I truly believe in? Now I got to do that work. I think it's a lot easier for us to assume that people aren't being authentic when they might just be truly doing, what's calling to them and exploring that and trying to be their truest selves. And how are we supposed to just immediately know what that is? I don't know. I guess it's kind of mixed. I think in some ways we know, but a lot of things we kind of have to like find out by doing things, making some mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. I think it's every day though, Hannah Montana. I think it's every day. I think we make mistakes every day, and that's a good thing. And I think that means that we are going towards a more authentic self and an authentic life by making those mistakes. And we all make them. So why do we pretend like it's such a bad thing? I feel like it's been really marketed the wrong way. We need to re-market mistakes. I also think that we get confused about authenticity because I think the more authentic you are, the less liked you might be. Because if you're not people-pleasing, people might not be very pleased. So I do think it can very easily be confused with like being selfish or conceited a lot of times. And it's kind of nerve-wracking. I think most people do extremely struggle when it comes to the self-love, confidence, all of those sorts of things. And all of those things, are kind of tied together to be authentic. So I think when we see it in other people, it's kind of like, calling ourselves out. We also are kind of resistant to it because we don't feel like we're allowed to be that way or to be that honest. I think too that's why it might be easier for people to like perceive a celebrity, like someone they don't even know, as being like authentic and a good person versus like being able to recognize that in your actual like immediate circle. Because I think, like I was saying before, we seem to like compare ourselves more. That seems to be our baseline of what's right. And I think they're more directly like a reflection of ourselves too. And if everyone's people pleasing each other, it's just a circle jerk of pleasing, not the kind that's very enjoyable, because it's not authentic. All right, you know what? Let's go to the polls. Let's go to these polls. I actually got the idea for these questions from a video that I found on TikTok. They were saying like, 6 points of authenticity. And I was like, I feel like these are great base points for questions on this topic. So I just wanted to give this guy credit. Logan Cohen on TikTok. He's a licensed something. I don't know. But it doesn't matter because I'm not like going to be spitting out facts or anything. These are what helped me think of questions for authenticity. And here we go. Here are the questions. I asked you guys, what was most important to you? First instinct when it came to valuing your character over reputation, because being authentic is not putting on a front. So you would value just who you are deep in your soul versus how other people are perceiving you, right? 40% of you said focusing on the perception of yourself versus others. That was my answer. And then 33% of you said detaching from others' opinions. The other options in there were knowing your worth and grounding versus masking. So obviously all of those things are great answers. I was just curious, like, what in that category resonates the most with you guys? Because, I think they all are almost essentially the same thing, really. But it is interesting how, like, just even the angle of the same thing can change depending on, like, the thought stream that you're having about it. So I think that would be a good place to start when it comes to figuring out if you're coming from a place of character or caring about your reputation. Because we do most things subconsciously, I feel like, especially, like the little things throughout our day. So I think if we ever aren't sure about where we're coming from on something, I think that would be a good question to start. Like, am I coming at this, perceiving this other person instead of just trying to perceive myself? Or am I doing this because I'm attaching this person's reaction to me or the anticipation of a reaction from somebody else? And then the next one was another first instinct when it comes to what's most important to you in accountability through tension. So like, the things that make us uncomfortable, arguing, disagreeing, doing something out of the norm for ourselves. This was almost like an even split between every single one. So again, it's kind of the same as last time. Like, it's really the same thing, but it's just coming from different angles of it. So learning happens outside of our comfort zone. Mistakes mean progression. Misunderstandings are opportunities to bond. And with that one, it really is just an opportunity to get closer. And I think when we put our walls down, when we're not trying to just please the other person and we're coming at the conversation like really authentically, I think it is that much easier to come together, come to an understanding, even if there continues to be a difference there. But if we're able to, listen to one another and speak our truth, then it's only an opportunity to learn more, grow more, and, be able to move forward. And then taking responsibility leads to more trust in yourself and between others. So all good things, but I was just curious, at what angle you guys predominantly come from. And then when it comes to engaging in gossip, because I do think that is a big part of authenticity, not only because it's like, if you talk about somebody behind their back and then to them you're like super nice, which I think everybody does, right? A little bit. But is that very authentic? I don't know, not really. But I think a lot of us can also agree that gossip is also just natural. Gossip can create very authentic conversations. It's very valuable in a lot of ways. I think it's just like the being fake to the person you've talked about after the fact, where there's some red flags there. But then also in those gossipy conversations, I think there are very different levels to gossip. Like, I think there's the lighthearted, fun gossip where you're just kind of like teasing about people, but then at the end, everyone knows it's not that serious. It's a really big way that we learn about people in general, and a big way that we learn about ourselves. And it can just create some really fun and interesting conversations. I think the issue too is when we don't circle it back to ourselves, because usually the things that we observe in others are things that, come from ourselves too. Or it also helps us learn more things about what our values are or other people's perceptions, even if we're initially coming from judgment. If we take that time to talk about it, especially with other people, then sometimes we can, come to a better understanding and then be able to kind of change our minds and be less judgmental. So I think that there's a lot of positives, but it's definitely a slippery slope. 53% of you said that you'll joke around, but overall you communicate supportively, which is amazing. So if you talk about me, it better be that you love me. So in relationships where you don't feel like you are fully accepted as yourself, this one also came out to a pretty even split. But pretty much what I wanted us to think about is how authentic are we in our relationships? Because I don't think it's very authentic if we can't be ourselves with each other. How can that be authentic? But the interesting thing about that is I think most of us learn to be inauthentic in our own families, in our own upbringings, because we feel like we're going to be judged by our family members. So we keep things hidden, or, we tell people what they want to hear, or we don't want them to be in a certain mood, so we'll act a certain way. And I think that just naturally can progress into some unhealthy behaviors, or not feeling very confident in ourselves, or thinking that we're weird, or we shouldn't be too much, or shouldn't love ourselves. I don't know. And it's not that families usually want that for each other, but we might just not know any other way. And if nobody's changing, nothing's changing. If we're all just so busy trying to please one another and nobody's being themselves, then it makes sense that those cycles not only don't change, but a lot of people don't live very authentic lives, honestly. And another interesting thing for me when it comes to authenticity and relationships is, for some people it works to just cut people out of your life. If they don't let you be themselves, then sayonara. Which honestly, I am that way unless it's family or someone, that I've known my whole life, sort of thing. I'm not really down to cut off family members, if I'm being honest. Unless unless it gets to that point, then sure. But boundaries really do protect us. I think a lot of people have a really hard time with boundaries, especially with family. But, just like anything else, the more you practice and the more you do it, the easier it gets. But again, like I was kind of saying towards the beginning, people might not like it. They're probably not going to like it because of what I also was, talking about in the beginning. It points things out to themselves, and they don't want to have to change their behaviors for how they treat you. So even as hard as it is to be authentic, that's definitely the hardest part, is other people's reactions usually. But in the end, once you get used to it, it really is the best, because eventually they're going to have to get used to it. It's not going to be great for a while, but it is going to get better. It is going to get better. And you're going to lose a lot of wasted time. It is a waste of time if you are doing things that you don't actually want to be doing. And a lot of times you might be wasting time on others that you don't even want to be wasting time on, but you just have a hard time saying no, or like you feel like you're a bad person if you don't do that thing. And a lot of times that turns to, resentment. And last, I asked you guys about, the scale of not taking yourself too seriously. I think when we're taking ourselves too seriously, we're worried about other people's judgments of us, aka we're judging ourselves. Like the first thing that comes to mind is imposter syndrome, or worried about trying something new because we don't want to look stupid, or something vulnerable like sharing your art. We are really our biggest, critics. And I think we use other people's opinions, whether they're even real or not, to like confirm to ourselves whether we're worthy or not. So if we already love ourselves no matter what, through all the mistakes, all the learning steps, all the beginning stages of anything, I think authenticity is just going to come a lot easier. 60% of you said taking yourself seriously depends on, the who and the what. Nobody answered could not give less fucks. I really wanted to answer that, but I was trying to be honest with myself that, sometimes I do still care. Like a big example would be setting up for this podcast. I do start to feel insecure if I don't think I look that great. So I have those moments for sure. Okay, well, I'm going to be authentic here and just say that I'm kind of done for the night. I hope to see you at the polls next week. And I hope that you will be your most authentic self, the best you can be. Tell people to shut up and be themselves, and that you accept them for who they are and give them a big old kiss on their lips. Or I'll see you then. Bye.